Hello again, Ian Stoker with Mastermind Games, and this time going into the wonderful world of War Machine with the Cephalix Warcaster Cognifex Siphon. So actually, Pure White 09039, I'll start on his base. Because he's got a flight stand, I'm doing that as a separate. Well, that happened. Okay, so because of the translucent flight stand, I'll be getting the arc ready simultaneously with the paint job. So since I'm using a bright color, in this case a bright yellow, just get that prepped with a little white. So I actually did prime the base, then I glued the flight stand on, and after I'm done painting Thex's Siphon, then I will do the final assembly. And I'm going to start with Old Bronze 09197. This is going to be kind of a funny one just because I'll probably have to do each color at least twice. I could have done a partial assembly here under the cowl, but I chose not to. That drives me nuts. It really does. Let me get this machinery here on the back. I want to do this. I want to do this section here, and its match on the side. And Siphon is another one of those models where I nearly glued my hand shut during assembly. All his arms gave me quite a bit of trouble. We're all separate pieces, and yeah. Just do this section. It's a bit thick. Well, I wasn't going to paint that part because that's where the flight stand's going to go, but I've wound up nicking it anyway. This is going to end up being one of the simpler color schemes I've done. Going up the arms just shy of the actual blades and or manipulators. And Cyfex's melee weapon is a Pincher Embrace. He does have a Psychic Blast type attack, but mostly he is a monstrosity buffing Warcaster. So the Cephalix are a subgroup of mercenaries, technically. They've been in the game since first edition as allies to Crix when those were a thing. But oddly enough, they didn't have any kind of charter that allowed them to be used on their own until late into second edition, almost third. And they only have 2 casters, Siphon being one, Exelon Thexus being the other. And I really like the playstyle of the Cephalix. I'm good at it. But yeah, they are basically these subterranean boogeymen. Few people even know they exist. They abduct people, turning them into mindless drudges and hulking monstrosities. Emphasis on hulking. Monstrosity, basically picture the Incredible Hulk with his arms replaced with weapons, and you're pretty close. Okay. Well, I think that's good. I'll let that dry for a bit before I hit the next color. Okay, let's see if I can do this without visiting Apocalypse upon my layout this time. 09206 Tarnished Steel. Definitely going to have to do this in 2 layers. So, see how it goes. Getting the inside of his hood here. Okay, now Siphon actually has appeared in the fiction before. He was the Cephalix liaison with Crix at their, what's the name of it? Their Necrofactorium facility that was destroyed near the end of the previous war by a coalition of Signoran, Khadorn, and Protectorate forces. And he coordinated with, at the time, Master Necrotech Morton Abra, who is now the Newman of Necrogenesis. In the evacuation isn't the correct word in this case because they didn't actually evacuate the facility. That's abandoning it isn't the right word either. They essentially sacrificed a huge portion of their troops to cut off the invading forces from deeper sections of the facility. And Siphon was particularly frustrated with having to use his to use verbal communication done through a little speaker box type apparatus instead of his psychic communication, because apparently it's nearly impossible to psychically communicate with the undead. I suppose the best word for what Syphix and Morton Abra did, and I'm probably never going to be sure how to pronounce that name, is a selective sealing of it. So that the attacking coalition would only get part of it. Seems to me that Privateer has largely given up on the fiction as of late since introducing the CID, so I hope they change that and start ramping it up online. The last thing they posted was new fiction with the new twins for Circle, the Thorn twins. I can't remember their names, but hopefully they ramp that up because there are more stories to tell that haven't been told. So, as I mentioned, Siphon's melee weapon is a pincher embrace. It's not all that powerful. His limbs are meant more for surgical manipulations than they are combat. And I'm only going to do the hood out to about here on this coat. To flip it to get the, I'll have to do the like half now, half later, basically. And this sort of gets a little funky for me. Probably have to redo part of this limb. I'm pretty sure he's going to end up resting on it while it dries. Might touch up the bronze too. I don't like all Cephalux. He is physically weak, but psychically strong. He's basically... Yeah, that head of his is just about all the body that there seems to be. He's just in this cylinder. Okay, I'm going to let that dry before moving on. But what I can also do right now is take Sun Yellow 09008 and get the base colored, though I probably won't define the arc until I'm closer to finished with Siphon, because the way he's positioned will determine exactly how I finish up the arc here. But he's definitely going to be off-center and won't be coming straight out from the stand. Okay. Let that dry, come back when I can. Alright. So it'll cut my throat. So more tarnished steel 09206. See if I can finish up the base coats here on the back side. Need to rethink part of this, I think. See if I can avoid punching out my camera. Okay, yeah, just rework a bit of this. Real careful, like. Okay, so the Cephalux are some sort of humanoid. They may or may not have started out as human. They have a fierce rivalry with the convergence of Cirrus and are their most direct mortal enemies. But they augment their brains with machinery to increase their psychic powers, making their heads bigger in the process. Excuse me. As well as adding additional mechanical limbs to their bodies that end in tools, typically surgical instruments. So their melee attacks tend to be weak because their implements are meant for surgery, not combat. In any case, they let their drudge slaves do the fighting, which are people they abduct and surgically alter. And monstrosities, their equivalent to warjacks, which are their own model type, are simply larger sized versions of their drudges. Heads covered with helmets that deprive them of sight, but their minds altered to perceive their surroundings through other means, with forearms replaced with weapons and tools. And in earlier versions of their rules, it was kind of implied that these forearm mounts were modular so that a given drudge could be repurposed for various tasks as needed. Okay. I'd say that's got the base coats. This is a pretty simple color scheme, so let that dry and then start shading. Okay, 09205 black and steel. I'll have to do this in 2 takes. And this is going to get kind of tricky no matter how I do it. So, Siphon's head and his arms were metal pieces, but the rest of the body, including his cowling, which was a separate piece, is resin. So, in terms of physical weight, he's not that heavy, but we'll see how well he attaches to his flight stand. All right. Let that dry. Move on a bit. Okay, now I can get the rest of the black and steel here. Alright. Okay, last shade. Aged Pewter 09196. I think I can go ahead and get it all at once here. Normally I wouldn't use a brush this big on this kind of detailing, but I'm skilled enough I can pull it off. But just keep in mind it's not something I would normally recommend if you're just starting out. Bigger brushes like this are generally better for larger areas like the carapace, for lack of a better word. And some of the steel highlight got onto the bronze areas, but that's alright. Oh, that's okay, I can... Or shading. Shading isn't what I was looking for, but I can work with that. And that beef is my dinner, but I can take time to do this first really quick before I attend to stirring. Pop that bubble there, or try to. That's shading. Once that's dry, I can get the lighting effect started. Okay, 09039 pure white. Oh boy. I am almost at a loss for words as to what I have just witnessed. Wandering around YouTube, they channel World of Long Plays that does playthroughs of video games, particularly on older systems. They've gone through the NES library, and now they're starting to do bootlegs and hacks. I have just seen Born Witness 2, a Harry Potter unlicensed game, unlicensed Harry Potter, on the original NES. That's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. It defies explanation. It's a new upload on World of Long Plays. Oh man. It was obviously programmed by someone whose knowledge of Harry Potter comes exclusively from just the trailer of the first movie, and that's it. I cannot explain. I can't. It's... Oh boy, it is beyond anything rational, and this is just setting up the lighting effects. Yeah. Yeah. I'm also in between takes looking through a playthrough they've got up of a Super Nintendo game based off the Dennis the Menace movie of the 90s, which I'm watching mostly out of perverse curiosity, but there's a level in there, a boiler room, that would be right at home in Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is an officially licensed game, so even... Oh boy. There are things that cannot be explained no matter how hard you try. And these are some of them. Now I woke up in a really foul mood, and that just seeing this Harry Potter thing, especially since Harry Potter's prime attack seems to be kicking people in the crotch, just made my day. Oh, man. Oh. Oh boy. Ugh. Okay. Okay. I think that's pretty good for stuff to have lit up, so once that's dry, I can actually put the color down in there and then start highlighting. Okay, Ruby Red 09101 for the lighting. Oh boy. Yes, this Dennis the Menace thing I've been taking a look at. He's gone from a boiler room that Freddy Krueger wishes he had to sewers that look just about as creepy and terrifying. Good grief. Oh boy. It's one of those what were they thinking and what were they on type of things. Let's see. Blot a bit of that out. Yeah, yeah. I am definitely a do-it-yourselfer when it comes to things, including video games. But I don't really. But long plays are great for seeing old games or weird ones or obscure ones. That said, I don't really do new video games anymore, but I keep my eye on the industry in case I want to get back into that. Right now, I'm mostly just doing the old games of the hobby here, but still. This has been an entertaining day and it's barely begun. Okay. Okay. Now, War Machine did have a video game actually. War Machine Tactics. They did a Kickstarter for it, but unfortunately, the intent was that every faction would follow the career of a journeyman warcaster going from journeyman to full-fledged. So it'd be a campaign for every faction at the time before getting into hordes. And while all these journeyman characters did get models in the game, so Allison Jakes, Iakos, Scourge of the Meridius, Gaston Cross, they do have models in the game and they do have their full-fledged versions, but in the video game, only Jakes got her campaign. I just kind of never followed through on that. Okay. Do a little corner there. Okay. Once that's dry, I'm ready to highlight. So, back in a minute. Alright, time to highlight Coppery Orange 09102. Well, I gave Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress a spin and I got my teeth kicked in, so I think it's safe to say that it is the Battletoads of board games. It's going to be a lot of fun mastering that. And I'm focusing here mostly on the most readily visible parts of the apparatus under the cowling here. Might have been a bit much of the paint on that try. Okay, now switching out my brushes, and I'm going to use True Silver 09207 on the manipulator portions of the body. And for the rest of the carapace, outside of switching brushes, I'm going to go Sparkling Amethyst 09105. This has kind of a bad label. Well, rats. I think it's dead. Okay, alright. I'm going to improvise instead. I'll go ahead and go with, I'll try Emerald Green 09103. Green and red are complementary on the color wheel, so meaning they're on opposite ends, so this should help to actually make the lighting effects stand out more. Still, though, not too happy about finding I've run out of paint in the middle of a take. That's always a nuisance. And this brush isn't working at all. It's not really delivering any pigment. Let's try a different one. Okay, this one's working. Somewhat. Or maybe my paint's bad. I'd hate to think my paint has gone bad. That's be incredibly frustrating. And I honestly can't tell if the pigment's coming through. This is turning into an exercise in frustration. Okay, maybe it just wasn't mixed thoroughly enough. Oh, there's definitely pigment in there. It's just doing some funny things. Yeah, the tint of green isn't too bad at all either. So, last minute improvisation. Okay, now just need to, that's not too bad. Just need to glue him to his flight stand now. So this is going to take a while. I decide I'll finish up the arc after he's attached, but just a dab of a cyanoacrylate glue into that little nub there. And that happened. And attach just the way I want him. And I'm going to have to hold this for a while. I'm going to need both hands, so I'm just going to have to cut here and come back in a bit. Well, I feel foolish. I found a spare pot of sparkling amethyst 09105, so I didn't realize I had it, so I'm going to do another real quick loose light highlight here with it, since it's what I want to do in the first place. Now this looks kind of weird. Well, we'll call it an experiment and see what happens when I use a secondary highlight, but well, kind of works. Just wish I had noticed I had this before diving in, but yesterday got kind of strange for me, so alright. But the meat of this step is actually doing the markings on the base. Trying to avoid a crap-a-lanche. Bring down my second cutting mat. There we go. And getting siphon centered on the appropriate marking the way I want him. Then pure black 09037. So first I'm just going to mark the edges. This is why I overextend. Boy, it's going to get awkward. Okay. Now that the edges are marked, get my camera reset. Take a flat brush to just backfill. Okay. Let that dry. Then I can flock the base and wrap this up. Okay. Basing time. So, white glue, any conveniently sized container. And plenty of water. Sacrificial brush. This will ruin it sooner, so, don't use your best or get a cheapie. I think I used synonyms there. And just gonna fill up the base. Just a generous amount. Now this little raised area here, because this is a slot base, I put a piece of masking tape there to cover it. I did that before priming, so sometimes that tape will curl up, sometimes it won't, but it just plugs up any excess in the gap. What's nice about this style of base is the little lip that catches this stuff. Okay. I'm gripping it by the flight stand, not the model. Get a dip in the flock. And taking a dry brush, push away any excess. And that's going to have to set for a bit before I seal it. Okay, last step is to take a spray or brush on adhesive and just drip it into the base. You don't want it to look wet, but if you don't give your materials some time to set first, this will push it around and make gaps. That's a nice solid coat. So I wound up having a few problems, did a little experimenting, but that is Cognifex Siphon from Warmachine. Got more Warmachine coming up, so until next time, I am Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, signing out.